it seems everybody wants a piece of that shared universe, if you catch my drift. I mean, ever since May 2nd, 2008, Marvel has set the standard for other studios to follow. Why? Because at that time, in 2008, they started what was known as the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which continues now into its third phase, and is going to continue on next year. 3 movies: Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, Spider-Man Homecoming, and Thor Ragnarok. But it's because of this now that you have other studios, companies wanting to create their own shared universes, their own cinematic universes. Once Marvel did theirs, we were pretty much confident that, well, DC wouldn't be far behind, and even though it took them a couple years later, DC did start their own cinematic universe with Man of Steel, which was followed up by, of course, Batman vs. Superman, Dawn of Justice, and Suicide Squad. And gets continued on next year with Wonder Woman, Justice League, and continues on from there and there. Heck, even King Kong, even the Godzilla and King Kong franchises are getting into the act with what is called the King Kong, which is with what is called the Godzilla King Kong series. Yeah. Even Legendary Pictures through Warner Brothers and I think Universal are all getting into this with the Godzilla King Kong series, which began with Godzilla, is continuing next year with Kong Skull Island, followed up 2 years later by Godzilla 2, and then a year later with Godzilla vs. Kong. So even Toho Kaiju monster franchise are getting into the act. But now you also have a cinematic universe that, well, people had heard about what's happening and is going to happen. It's sort of a rebooted version, because in a sense we kind of saw these crossover, and, well, a long time ago we saw them crossover. Now they're back again in a more cinematic universe way, a more shared universe way. That is the Universal monster. We're talking The Mummy, we're talking Frankenstein, we're talking Dracula, we're talking Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, Invisible Man, you name it, Creature Black Lagoon, Bride of Frankenstein, Wolfman, you name them. All the classic Universal monsters that you know of are all getting brought back and remade, perhaps modernized, a new shared universe by Universal. And this, to me, has potential to be good. I mean, the fact that the first one they're bringing out is The Mummy, and instead of a male playing the mummy, like in the original 30s and 40s, and even in the Brendan Fraser films, you have a female lead in Sophia Boulette as the mummy, as the princess that becomes the mummy. You have her playing the lead, and you have Tom Cruise as Nick Morton. But what's even more fascinating about this is you have Russell Crowe starring as Dr. Jekyll. And the reason I say that's even more interesting, because like I said, as I mentioned with the other monsters, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde is in that same category. Now, when I look at the schedule here that Wikipedia provides, and we all know that scheduling and release dates can all change. These are not finalized. Most of them are under the impression of to be announced, TBA. So again, some of this could change, some of this could not change, and we do have 2 that have release dates that, like I said, could change and not change. And they're 2 untitled films. Now, after that, in the films that have yet been given release dates, you have an untitled Invisible Man film, you have an untitled Wolfman film, an untitled Van Helsing film, you have an untitled Creature from the Black Lagoon film, and an entitled Bride of Frankenstein film. Now, those basically are going to be called something else with the names in there. But what's intriguing to me is the 2 films that have set dates after The Mummy. One is set, we know The Mummy is set for June 9th of next year. But the two Untitled films, you have one Untitled film which is set for April 13th of 2018, and then you have an Untitled film set for February 15th, 2019. Now what's intriguing about this, and going back to Russell Crowe portraying Dr. Jekyll in the Mummy movie, I have a feeling that one of these Untitled films, maybe the one that comes out in April of 2018, is going to be a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde film. Feel it. I mean, why? I mean, they even say in a category, they even say in another article that Russell Crowe's Dr. Jekyll character is going to be elaborated on in further films. So what better way to do that than to give Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde their own film, his own film, to follow up on the Mummy. It would, in my opinion, it would work because you're following up on the same character that you're introduced to or reintroduced to in the Mummy reboot, in the Mummy film. It follows, you're following up on that character, you're seeing his inner struggles with good side and his bad side, you see him going through the transformations and all that. So I think Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde would be a good follow-up after the Mummy. But then that leads us to the other Untitled film that we yet to know of. But I think I know what that one may be. You got two choices. You can either go with a Dracula film, a Count Dracula film, or you can go with a Frankenstein film. Here's why. One of the films that they mentioned last that has an Untitled to it is a Bride of Frankenstein film. So how can you have a Bride of Frankenstein film if you don't have a film that follows before it, or that comes before it, that precedes it? So I think this is the way it's going to happen. You got The Mummy coming out next year in June. The film that I feel is going to follow it in April of 2018 is going to be Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. And the one that follows that in February of 2019 is going to be Frankenstein. I feel that's going to happen. Because then you could start building towards the Bride of Frankenstein from that. Now, like I said, the other monsters that they're talking about is Invisible Man, Wolfman, Van Helsing, Creature from the Black Lagoon, and Bride of Frankenstein. But you also, like I said, you got Dracula and a few other monsters that have yet to be announced. But to me, I look at this for Universal and I say that this has the potential to be good. It has the potential to be good. Now, those Untitled films could also be crossovers, for all we know. We could have The Mummy cross over into the Dr. Jekyll film, and not only have that be a Dr. Jekyll Mr. Hyde film, but also have it be a continuation of the Mummy film, and thus you have the Mummy, the princess character, Amulet, I think, battling Russell Crowe's Dr. Jekyll, or precisely Russell Crowe's Mr. Hyde character. So that might be intriguing in itself. So those could be crossover films, but one of them also is going to be a single monster film. And that monster film, like I said, is either going to be Frankenstein or Count Dracula that comes out in February of 2019. Because, as I mentioned, I look at the movie that follows The Mummy in 2018 is going to be Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. Because you got Dr. Jekyll in the Mummy movie right now, as we speak, portrayed by Russell Crowe. What better way to follow up on that than to make the next movie Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, and release that in April of 2018. It makes sense. It continues from the last film, and it helps build your shared universe of Universal monsters, which, let's be honest, we know they're potentially building towards a huge crossover with all the monsters. We know that. We know that's coming. We know that's going to happen. We just don't know when or where, but we know it's going to happen. Now, you might say, well, Brian, one of the films is Van Helsing. That's going to have Dracula anyway. That's true. It could be a Van Helsing versus Dracula film, for all we know. That's what they could call it. We don't know that yet. But yeah, it could, the Van Helsing film can serve as a Dracula film. No doubt. So I'm not, putting that, I'm not ignoring that option. I'm not going by that, I'm not passing up that option because I think what you'll be guessing is right, that Van Helsing could be a Dracula film and it could be Helsing versus Dracula. It could be. We'll just have to wait and see, but this is the way I look at it. This is how the category I see going. The Mummy, of course, is going to be next year. April 13th, 2018, I think it's going to be the follow-up, which is Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. I just got that feeling. And then the one that follows up in February 15th, 2019, I believe is going to be a Frankenstein film, because you got to build to the Bride of Frankenstein, so you got to have a Frankenstein film. That's going to be next. And then since the other ones are in development and they have the people already signed up for it, I think we're going to go Wolfman next after Frankenstein. Then we're going to go Invisible Man. Then we're going to go Creature of Black Lagoon. Then we'll go Bride of Frankenstein. And then I think we're going to hit with, I think they're going to close out that phase before maybe the ultimate crossover of all the monsters with the Van Helsing / possible Dracula film. That's what I think. That, in my opinion, that's the category I think they're going to go. If they go in that category, I believe it's going to serve them well. I really do. Now, the question is, what ratings are these movies going to get? Well, The Mummy for next year is being described as an action-adventure horror film. So, I could look at the potential of an R rating for it, but I could also look at the potential of a PG-13 rating. I really can't. Because kids love monsters, right? Kids are getting into monsters. You got the Five Nights at Freddy's deal that's working out with them. And so I'm looking at a borderline of an R and a PG-13. I think since these are multimedia, universal, if you to coin the phrase, cross-platform characters and monsters, I think they're going to go with a PG-13 rating for the film. I really do. And hopefully The Mummy starts off good for them. And like I said, we get the ball, and hopefully it helps them get that ball rolling to really build and create a unique shared universe for the Universal monsters, which I believe is going to culminate with a mega crossover of all of them right after the Van Helsing film. I think that's how they're going to, because let's be honest, Dracula is the big baddie, right? Like the ultimate monster of monsters. So you want to build towards that. You don't want to rush it out just yet. So I think that's what they're going to do. But in my opinion, I think it's going to work out fine for them. I think they're going to great with this. I wish Universal nothing but luck. And hopefully, we'll probably get more. And hopefully as time goes on and we start building towards patient for the Mummy movie, hopefully we will get more than bargaining for. Hopefully we'll get more introductions to potential other monster films for the Universal Monster Shared Universe. And hopefully this will build up that hype to not just anticipate. And hopefully as time goes on, the hype will get build up even more so, like I said, like I'm trying to say, and we'll get introduced to more potential monster films to follow, along with the ones that are announced and in production. Maybe this might be what Universal needs to help them really turn it around and regain status as a dominant force in the movie business. It's like, maybe this is their way of saying, hey, Marvel, you think you're dominating with your cinematic universe? DC, you think you're going to try to dominate as well? We're going to dominate. We're going to show you how it's done. So hopefully they'll get it done. Hopefully it'll be done right. Hopefully it'll be a home run for them. And really, that's all I'm going to say. So let me know what you guys think. What are your thoughts about this upcoming Universal Monsters Shared Universe? How do you think the movies will go in order chronologically? And let me know which ones you're probably looking forward to the most. And what do you think the two Untitled films will be? Do you think they will be Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, and then Frankenstein? Or what else? Let me know what you guys think down below, and I'll talk to you later.